Greetings, I'm Rob Chapman.
And I'm Captain America.
We're at Andertons.co.uk, home of tone.
Home of tone. Home, that sounds slightly, almost, if you said that really, really quickly, it
Home
might
of tone.
come out inappropriately. Anyway.
I got a Les Paul.
I've got a Cornford Hellcat with a 2x12 cabinet and a couple of these fine and dandy German products here by a company called Palmer, who make all sorts of gadgets for guitars, but are probably best known for their speaker simulators that they make. So,
that's what I know them for, Lee.
There are two here. There's sort of the grey one, called the PDI-03, has been around for as long as I can remember, and is essentially, you see in a lot of studios, and they claim to have had guitar players from Van Halen to Def Leppard and all kinds of other names. And what they would have used these for in the studios is to get a sort of a kick-ass cranked guitar amp sound, but from the speaker output into the speaker simulator box, and then a DI'd signal from this into the desk to get their guitar sound. Last year, crept into the catalogue an updated version of it called the PGA-04.
Which I think rolls off the tongue really nicely.
It rolls off the tongue better than the other thing, Adiglaba, which stands for Advanced Direction Injection for Guitar.
Oh, is that what it is?
Apparently so.
Oh yeah, direct injection for guitar.
How do you pronounce that one again, Lee?
Adiglaba. Now, basically, I was a bit confused because it looks as if the new blue one is a straightforward replacement for the old PDI-03. It's basically exactly the same concept, but with more control over the voicing of the speaker cabinet you're trying to emulate.
But
however,
ye studio traditionalists keep ordering the standard speaker simulator PD-103.
Palmer tell me is that basically they're going to leave the PDI-03 in the catalogue because it has just become something that engineers just know and love. So what we're going to do in this test is Rob is going to play a Hellcat through the cabinet. It's mic'd up in the way we always mic guitar
Someone has to
cabinets
do
up
that.
here.
It may as well be me.
We've got an AKG 414, C414 and an SM57. It's how we mic all the cabinets here, close mic'd up, and that's what you're going to hear. Now, we're running this at about a quarter of the volume output here, and that's as loud realistically as we can do it.
Well, we should say that we've got this cab stood at its end, so it's a little bit louder in the ear. It's a 30 watt head.
Yeah.
If it was laying flat, you could crank it a little bit more, but it's a great sounding tone right now.
Yeah. So I think the concept here with these is, if you're in a home studio or an environment where turning up a loud guitar amplifier, loud to record it is just not possible. That's kind of where your speaker simulator box comes in, because the idea is we're going to disconnect the speaker, run it entirely into the load box. We could turn the amp up absolute maximum if you like to see what sort of a sound we get, and then I'm going to fiddle with the voicings to see what sort of sounds we're going to get. We're going to do both the new one, the PGA-04, and compare it to the PDI-03 so that you can get an idea. They're both about the same price, both around about the £300 mark if you look on the Andertons website. And basically, the reverb you hear when it's just the cabinet is the spring reverb built into the amplifier, and the reverb that you hear when you hear it direct into the speaker simulation will be a reverb that Stick has taken from some sort of Logic plugin, I expect, a sort of spring reverb kind of emulator.
So should we start by just getting some tones from the cab into the mics?
So
into
listen
your
to
ears?
this. Listen to this. So that's what the amp sounds like on its own. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the cabinet. So we're just running the amplifier straight into the PGA-04. we can hear it in the room through a little kind of powered PA cabinet that we've got on the floor here, but what you're hearing is just the feed direct from the mixer. So if you're in a home studio, essentially you could do all this through headphones, and that's as much noise as you would make. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to be able to drive the amplifier as loud as I want it to be. So if we're
taking the load in these PDIs.
So if we prefer the tone with the output section all the way up, and so again, particularly if you've got an old vintage amplifier that just doesn't do anything until it's full bore gunned, that's really useful here. What you can see on the new one is just how much power you're actually soaking up, which you could never see on the old one. I'm not sure if that's helpful or not, but it's a little visual kind of, looks cool because the lights flash up. So. Anyway.
Hi! That's better. Now you can see what Cat's poking at.
So on the top row here, basically we've got three knobs and a button that relate to the filtered output, which is the sort of emulated output. We've also got a full range output, so if you do want to give the sound man a completely unspeaker emulated output so that perhaps he's got another piece of outboard that he wants to use for speaker emulation, you can do as well. So we turn the volume up here and we should start to hear something through the cabinet. Oh, perhaps it would help if I turn the amp on. If you can hear a tiny bit of hiss in the background, it's just the PA cabinet that we use. He's over there, isn't he? If you can hear a...
Camera 2!
If you can hear a tiny bit of hiss in the background, it's just the PA cabinet that we're doing. But what we're now doing is running the sound that you're hearing out of the load box. So the first thing I've done is cranked the master volume of the Hellcat up to sort of 3/4 of the way round. So
getting almost all your 30 watts worth here, aren't you?
Yeah, if this was in the room, this would be unbearably loud. So, and I've got it on the drive channel, and what I'm going to do, just whilst Rob is playing, is just fiddle with the two voicing controls. We've got a flat and a deep control on the bass end, a mellow and a bright control on the high end, and a brown and a light coloration control. And if you want to know, technically speaking, what those are doing, visit the Andertons website or the Palmer website and it'll tell you.
Can I play that?
Yes, go. So we can go to the clean channel, do exactly the same on the clean channel, wind that up a bit, a lot. So that's the PGA-04. What we're now going to do is basically exactly the same thing, but into the PDI-03. Just in case you're sitting there kind of going, well, what else could I use this for? If you are in a live situation, and again, you don't want to be reliant on having to mic your cabinet up, or again, what other reason might there be? You just like that, you want to know, even if you're at one gig and the guy's got a certain type of microphone and one sound engineer likes to do a mic placement here and the next sound engineer likes to do a mic placement somewhere different, and you just want to know that gig after gig after gig, the sound that the audience is getting is consistent, you can basically say to the sound guy, don't bother miking up, I'm going to have my head and cab on stage, my cab's going to be for my own monitoring, I'm going to run a signal through, so the signal goes into here and then straight out into the speaker, so you get the sound that you want, and the sound that you send the sound man is consistent in terms of tone, because you're giving him the filtered output.
So I guess good if you've got in-ear monitoring and you want the same mix every night.
Yeah.
Like Dragon Force.
Yeah, anything like that. So it's just, again, it's more probably that's the sort of thing, again, in the studio, I can see it being more of a home studio thing, because if you're a pro studio, you'll probably just say, look, go in the live room, turn the amp up as loud as you want it to be, and we'll mic it. No need for this, really. But if you're in a home studio where you haven't got that opportunity, these are great. But for a pro touring guitar player, again, he might want to say, look, I want a consistent sound to my, the audience, so I'm always going to give the sound man just a DI'd output.
So it removes all the risk of feedback, doesn't it? Because there's no cab, there's no loop involved.
Live,
so.
You'd still have your cab for monitoring.
Yeah. So what I mean is recording. If you want to record really super high level chords and whack it hard, you're not going to get the feedback. And well, obviously you can isolate, but in a little room you can't do that. So.
Yeah. That was a little refresher for you there to just hear what this cab sounded like again. So now,
into the PDI-03.
Into the PDI-03. Now we did notice the filtered output on this is not quite as hot as the filtered output on the PGA-04, so you might have to compensate a little for that on your desk if you did decide to buy this one. And rather than having knobs and a button, we've got dip switches. So I've got two dip switches with 3 positions each, so 6 different positions. That's 6 or 9? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 9 positions.
In a one-night stand.
Is that right? It is, I think.
Is there a middle?
Yes, there's a middle. Right, so, and again, I'm going to crank the power of the amplifier right up to sort of 3/4, so it's massively loud.
I'll play the same thing.
Play exactly the same thing, and we are ready. Here we go. So there you go, quick little A/B test between the PDI-03 and the PGA-04.
Comes with these 3 multicoloured fluffy little stands.
I'm not sure that to be honest with you, I'm not sure I can really tell a big difference between the two. In terms
One's a little
of,
bit quieter than the other.
Yeah, I mean, given that I don't think there's a big tonal difference between the two, I think I'd just go with the newer one because it's got the lights on it. I think, fair to say, before we started doing this video, someone in the room, maybe it might be Rob, was a bit sceptical about what the point of this was. And I get this is a sort of a niche piece of kit. I mean, this is not, if you're a guitar player, you don't go, first thing I'm going to buy is a power simulator. But once you've got to that sort of relatively pro level, you're regularly gigging larger venues, or you're doing a lot of, you're doing a lot of home studio stuff. And if your amp is, let's think of some amps. If your amp is a JCM 800 or an AC30 or even something like a Hellcat, which doesn't really start to come to life until it's pretty loud, then that's really where your speaker simulator is. I must admit, I think you would be hard pushed at a gig. At a gig, if you're the audience, you'd be hard pushed to know whether or not you were hearing through front of house, a mic'd up cabinet, or simulated output through that, which I guess is probably why this has become such a popular piece of pro kit. So,
well, there you go. Well, I've definitely been Rob Chapman,
and I've definitely been the captain.
I'm going to throw this pic at the camera, simulating then the video.